My name is Maya Torres. I'm 31 years old, and I live in Phoenix, Arizona. 3 months ago, at exactly 3:07 in the morning, a phone call shattered every single thing I believed about my husband, my marriage, and my entire life. When that woman's voice came through the line saying those 4 words, "Put my husband on," I thought she had the wrong number. But when she said what came next, when she told me her name and explained exactly who she was, I realized the wrong number belonged to me. I was the one who'd been dialing into a life that didn't exist. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I tell you how I discovered my husband Brandon's secret life, how I uncovered a betrayal so elaborate it involved forged documents, stolen money, and 2 other women who thought they were building futures with him, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and turn on those notifications because this story gets worse before it gets better. Way worse. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I want to know who's riding with me on this journey. Trust me, by the end of this story, you're going to understand why that 3 a.m. phone call was actually the best thing that ever happened to me, even though it felt like dying. So grab whatever you need, coffee, wine, tissues, and let me take you back to the beginning. Let me tell you about Brandon Torres, the man I married 5 years ago, the man I thought I knew better than anyone in the world. Spoiler alert, I didn't know him at all. We met 7 years ago at a charity gala in Scottsdale. I was working for a nonprofit that provided educational resources to underprivileged kids, and Brandon was there representing his company, Torres Financial Consulting. He was magnetic. 6'2", broad shoulders, perfectly tailored navy suit, and this smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. When he approached me at the bar and introduced himself, I remember thinking this man is way out of my league. But Brandon pursued me like I was the greatest prize he'd ever wanted to win. Flowers delivered to my office, handwritten notes tucked under my windshield wipers, surprise lunch dates where he'd show up with my favorite Thai food from that little place on Camelback Road. He made me feel cherished, valued, like I was this incredible woman he couldn't believe he'd found. And God, I fell for it. I fell for all of it. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. It was this elaborate production at the Desert Botanical Garden during sunset. Rose petals everywhere, a violinist playing our song, him down on one knee, with a 2-carat diamond ring that probably cost more than my car. I said yes before he even finished asking the question because in that moment, I was absolutely certain I was saying yes to forever with my soulmate. We got married 5 years ago in an outdoor ceremony at the Arizona Biltmore. 200 guests, a dress that made me feel like a princess, and vows that Brandon recited from memory, tears streaming down his face as he promised to love me, honor me, and remain faithful to me until death separated us. His exact words were, "You are the only woman I will ever need, the only woman I will ever love, the only future I want." I believed every syllable. For 5 years, I thought I was living the dream. We bought a gorgeous house in North Scottsdale with a pool and mountain views. We had successful careers. Me as director of development for a growing nonprofit, Brandon running his own financial consulting firm. We talked about starting a family soon, maybe next year when things settled down at work. We had couple friends, dinner parties, weekend trips to San Diego and Sedona. From the outside, we looked perfect. From the inside, I thought we were perfect too. But looking back now, I can see the cracks I ignored. The red flags I explained away because I was so desperate to keep believing in the fairy tale. God, I was so blind. It started about 2 years ago. Little things. Brandon's phone became password protected. When I asked why, he said his firm was handling some high-profile clients and he needed enhanced security for confidential financial information. Made perfect sense, right? He's a financial consultant. Of course he needs to protect client data. I never questioned it. Then the business trips increased. Brandon had always traveled some for work, maybe twice a month to meet with clients in California or Colorado. But suddenly he was gone every single week. 3 days here, 4 days there. He'd be in Los Angeles, then Seattle, then back to LA again. He said his client base was expanding, that he was closing major deals, that this was temporary, but would set us up financially for the rest of our lives. He'd call every night from his hotel room, tell me he loved me, tell me he missed me, tell me he couldn't wait to get home. I supported him. I told him I was proud of him. I held down the house while he was building our future. The late nights started too. On the weeks he was in Phoenix, he'd leave the house at 7 in the morning and come home at 10 or 11 at night, sometimes midnight. He'd walk in exhausted, barely able to keep his eyes open, and he'd kiss my forehead and apologize for working so hard. He said he was meeting with West Coast clients who were on Pacific time, that conference calls ran late, that this was just the nature of his business. I believed him because why wouldn't I? This was my husband, the man who'd cried during our wedding vows. Our intimacy changed too. We went from making love multiple times a week to maybe twice a month. When I tried to initiate, Brandon would say he was exhausted, stressed. His mind was on a big client deal. He'd promise we'd reconnect on the weekend, but then the weekend would come and he'd be too tired or have to prepare for Monday meetings. I started wondering if something was wrong with me, if I wasn't attractive enough anymore, if the spark had just naturally faded like it does in long marriages. I bought new lingerie, I planned romantic evenings. Nothing worked. He'd smile at me kindly and say, "Soon, babe, I promise. I'm just so swamped right now." Now I know exactly where all his energy was going. My friends started making comments. My best friend Daniela said it was weird how much Brandon traveled. My sister Rosa said she didn't like how distant he'd become, how I barely saw him even when he was in town. But I defended him. I got angry at them for even suggesting something might be wrong. I told them they were jealous because their relationships weren't as strong as mine, that they didn't understand how demanding Brandon's career was. I pushed away the people who were trying to warn me because I was terrified of what it would mean if they were right. There were other signs. Brandon started going to the gym obsessively, getting in the best shape he'd been in since college. He bought new clothes, expensive designer suits, and casual wear that wasn't his usual style. He changed his cologne. He started using hair product he'd never used before. When I commented on it, he said he was just trying to look professional for clients, that appearance mattered in his business. Another perfectly reasonable explanation. Our finances got weird too. We had a joint checking account for household expenses, but Brandon had always kept his business account separate. He said it was cleaner for tax purposes. About a year ago, I noticed our joint account was getting lower. When I asked Brandon about it, he said his business was going through a temporary cash flow issue, that some clients were slow to pay, but everything would even out soon. He asked if I could cover more of our household expenses for a few months. So I did. I started paying the mortgage, utilities, groceries, everything from my nonprofit salary, which was nowhere near what Brandon supposedly made. I was stretching myself thin, financially, but I thought I was helping my husband through a rough patch. 6 months ago, something happened that should have been my wake-up call. I was doing laundry and found a receipt in Brandon's suit pocket. It was from a jewelry store in Los Angeles, a receipt for a women's necklace, $2,200. I'd never received any necklace from Brandon. When I asked him about it, he didn't even hesitate. He said it was a gift for his mother for her birthday. His mother's birthday wasn't for another 3 months, but he said he'd seen it and wanted to buy it early. I believed him. Or maybe I forced myself to believe him because the alternative was too terrifying to consider. Then there was the night about 4 months ago when I woke up around 2 a.m. and Brandon wasn't in bed. I found him in his home office, door closed, talking on his phone in a low voice. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but when I opened the door, he practically jumped out of his skin. He ended the call immediately, and when I asked who he was talking to at that hour, he said it was a client in Hong Kong where it was business hours. He looked annoyed that I'd interrupted him. I apologized and went back to bed. That's how twisted things had become. I was apologizing for interrupting my husband's secret phone call at 2 a.m. The truth is, deep in my gut, I knew something was wrong. I felt it in my bones. But I was too afraid to look directly at it, because looking directly at it meant potentially losing everything I'd built my identity around. I was Maya Torres, successful nonprofit director with the perfect marriage. If the marriage wasn't perfect, then who was I? Now let me tell you about the night everything exploded. The night that changed absolutely everything. It was a Tuesday. Brandon was supposedly in town, not traveling that week, but he'd come home late every single night. That Tuesday, he got home around 11:30. I was already in bed, pretending to be asleep because I was tired of the pattern. Him coming home late, me being understanding, him kissing my forehead, and falling asleep immediately. I heard him shower, brush his teeth, and climb into bed beside me. Within minutes, he was snoring softly. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling the distance between us like a physical wall. This man sleeping beside me felt like a stranger. When had that happened? When had we drifted so far apart that we were just roommates sharing a bed? At 3:07 in the morning, Brandon's phone started buzzing on his nightstand. It wasn't his usual ringtone. It was vibrating over and over, like someone was calling repeatedly. Brandon didn't move. He was one of those people who could sleep through a tornado. But I was wide awake, my heart pounding for reasons I couldn't name yet. The phone kept vibrating. I looked at Brandon, still dead asleep, and something inside me, some instinct I'd been suppressing for months, told me to answer it. My hand was shaking as I reached across him and grabbed his phone from the nightstand. The screen showed an unknown number. No caller ID, just a string of digits. I should have ignored it. I should have put the phone back down and gone to sleep. But I didn't. I swiped to answer and put the phone to my ear. "Hello?" I said quietly. There was a pause on the other end. I could hear breathing. Then a woman's voice came through, sharp and aggressive. "Put my husband on the phone." My entire body went cold. "Excuse me," I managed to whisper. "I said, put my husband on the phone. Brandon Torres, I need to speak with him right now." My brain couldn't process what I was hearing. "I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong number. This is—" "No, I don't have the wrong number," the woman interrupted. "This is Brandon Torres's phone, isn't it? Cell number ending in 4729? Yes, but—" "Then put my husband on the phone." The room was spinning. I had to grip the edge of the mattress to steady myself. "Your husband?" My voice came out strangled. "I don't understand. I'm Brandon's wife." There was a long, terrible silence. When the woman spoke again, her voice had changed. The anger was still there, but now there was confusion too. Shock. "What did you just say?" "I'm Maya, Brandon's wife. We've been married for 5 years. Who is this?" I heard her sharp intake of breath. "This is Simone Torres. I've been married to Brandon for 3 years. We have a 9-month-old daughter together." The phone slipped from my hand and clattered onto the nightstand. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The words kept echoing in my head. 3 years, daughter, 9 months old. Brandon stirred beside me, mumbling something in his sleep. I looked at him, this man who I'd shared a bed with for 5 years, and I realized I was looking at a complete stranger, a liar, a fraud. I picked the phone back up with trembling hands. "Where are you?" I whispered. "Los Angeles," Simone said, and her voice was shaking now too. "Brandon lives here with me and our daughter in West Hollywood. He travels to Phoenix for work every other week, or at least that's what he told me. He said he has to meet with clients in Phoenix, that he's building up his Arizona client base. Los Angeles, all those business trips, 3 years? While I was in Phoenix thinking I was married to a devoted husband, this woman was in Los Angeles thinking the same thing. We'd both been living with the same man, believing the same lies, trusting him completely. Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it." "How did you get this number?" I asked Simone, my voice barely audible. I didn't want to wake Brandon. Not yet. Not until I understood what was happening. "I've always had this number," she said. "This is Brandon's cell phone, the one he uses all the time. Are you telling me you've been calling this same number?" "Yes, for 7 years." We both went silent, the impossible reality settling over us. Brandon had one phone, one number. He'd somehow been juggling both of us on the same device, and neither of us had known the other existed. "Why are you calling at 3 in the morning?" I asked. Simone's voice broke. "Our daughter has a fever. It spiked to 103. I've been trying to reach Brandon for the past hour. He said he had a late client meeting tonight and would be home by midnight, but he never came home. I was getting worried, and then I was getting angry, and I just kept calling. I thought maybe he was out with clients still and not checking his phone, but then you answered, and—" She started crying. I felt tears streaming down my own face. Brandon had told Simone he'd be home by midnight. He'd told me he was working late in Phoenix. He'd come home to me at 11:30 and climbed into our bed while his wife and baby daughter waited for him in Los Angeles. The cruelty of it, the calculated deception, it was almost impossible to comprehend. "I don't understand how this is possible," Simone said through her tears. "We live together. We have a daughter. We're married. How can you be married to him too?" "I don't know," I whispered. "But we need to figure this out. We need to compare everything." I crept out of the bedroom, phone clutched in my hand, and went downstairs to the kitchen. I couldn't risk waking Brandon until I knew the full scope of what I was dealing with. I turned on the small light over the stove and sat at the kitchen table in my pajamas, and Simone and I started talking. Really talking. She told me her story first. She met Brandon 4 years ago at a networking event in Santa Monica. He introduced himself as Brandon Torres, owner of Torres Financial Consulting, based in Los Angeles with satellite offices in other states. He was charming, attentive, successful. He pursued her for months before she finally agreed to go out with him. They dated for a year before he proposed. She said it was romantic, a sunset proposal on the beach in Malibu. Wait, I interrupted. When did he propose to you? March 15th, 3 years ago, she said. March 15th, 3 years ago. Brandon and I had been married for 2 years at that point. We just returned from a vacation in Cabo San Lucas to celebrate our second anniversary. While I was planning our celebration, he was proposing to another woman. Did you have a wedding? I asked, even though I already knew the answer would destroy me. Yes, small ceremony in Santa Barbara, about 50 people. My family, his mother flew in. His mother was there. I felt like I was going to be sick. Yes. Brandon said his father had passed away years ago, but his mother lives in Tucson. She came to the wedding. She's visited us in LA a few times. She's seen our daughter. Brandon's mother knew. His own mother knew he was living a double life, and she'd played along. The betrayal kept expanding, reaching into corners I hadn't even considered yet. Simone told me they got married in a courthouse ceremony, then had a small reception. She said Brandon had been hesitant about a big wedding because he'd been married before and it had ended badly. He told her his ex-wife had been vindictive, that he didn't want another elaborate wedding that might trigger bad memories. He told you he was divorced? I asked. Yes. He said he was married in his 20s, that it didn't work out, that he'd learned from those mistakes and was ready to do it right with me. He'd told her I didn't exist. Or no, worse, he'd told her a version of me existed, but as an ex-wife who was safely in his past. He'd erased our active marriage and replaced it with a convenient backstory. Simone said they'd been trying for a baby for about a year when she finally got pregnant. Brandon was thrilled, she said. So excited to be a father. They found out they were having a girl and he cried. He picked out her name, Maya Torres. I had to put my head down on the kitchen table. While Simone was pregnant with Brandon's daughter, while they were setting up a nursery and picking out baby names, I was in Phoenix trying to get pregnant too. Brandon and I had started trying around that same time, but nothing had happened. Month after month, negative pregnancy tests. I'd started to wonder if something was wrong with me, if we needed to see a fertility specialist. Now I realized Brandon had probably been doing something to prevent me from getting pregnant, taking steps to make sure I wouldn't conceive while Simone was already pregnant with his child. He travels a lot for work, Simone continued. He's gone to Phoenix every other week, sometimes every week for 3 or 4 days at a time. He said he was building his client base there, that he was thinking about opening a Phoenix office. He always calls when he's traveling, FaceTimes with me and Olivia, sends pictures. He seems to really miss us when he's gone. Of course he seemed to miss them, because when he was in Phoenix, he was with me, and when he was in Los Angeles, he was with them. We were his two lives, kept carefully separate, neither knowing the other existed. What about money? I asked. How does that work? Simone hesitated. We have a joint account for household expenses, but most of his income goes into his business accounts that I don't have access to. He gives me money for rent, groceries, baby expenses. He's generous, don't get me wrong. We live in a nice place in West Hollywood, 2-bedroom apartment. He pays for everything. I felt my stomach turn. Simone, I've been paying our mortgage here in Phoenix for the past year. Brandon told me his business was going through a cash flow problem and asked me to cover our expenses temporarily. What? Her voice went sharp. He told me business was booming. He just bought me a new car 3 months ago. Said the company had a great quarter. A new car? 3 months ago. That was around the time Brandon stopped contributing to our joint account. He'd bought Simone a car with money that should have been going to our household expenses in Phoenix. We kept comparing notes, timelines, schedules, stories. Every piece of information she had contradicted something I knew. Every detail revealed another layer of deception. Brandon had created 2 completely separate lives with 2 completely separate women, and he'd maintained both with such precision, such careful planning, that neither of us had suspected anything. Is there anyone else? I asked quietly. Any other women you know about? No, Simone said, but I only know what he's told me, and clearly nothing he says is true. We talked until the sun started rising over the Phoenix mountains. By then, we'd assembled a devastating picture of Brandon's double life. 2 wives, 2 homes, 1 daughter I'd known nothing about. Years of lies so elaborate, so detailed, that the man had essentially been living as 2 different people. As dawn broke, Simone said, "What do we do now?" I looked toward the staircase, knowing Brandon was still asleep upstairs in our bed. We don't tell him we know. Not yet. We need evidence. We need to document everything, so when we do confront him, he can't lie his way out of it. Agreed, Simone said. We need to be smart about this. We exchanged email addresses and promised to stay in touch. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen as the sky turned pink and orange, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Not just devastation and betrayal, though I felt plenty of that, but also rage, a cold, calculated fury that was more powerful than any emotion I'd ever experienced. Brandon Torres had stolen years of my life. He'd made me doubt myself, question my worth, and drain my bank account while he played house with another family. And he'd done the same thing to Simone. But we weren't going to fall apart. We weren't going to let him manipulate us or turn us against each other. We were going to gather every piece of evidence, build an airtight case, and then destroy him. Systematically. Completely. He wouldn't see it coming because he thought we were both too trusting, too devoted, too in love with him to ever question his lies. He was wrong. I went upstairs and climbed back into bed next to Brandon. He was still sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that his entire empire of lies was about to collapse. I lay there next to him, studying his face in the early morning light, and I felt nothing but cold contempt. This stranger, this fraud, this man who'd vowed to love only me until death separated us. When Brandon's alarm went off at 6:30, he rolled over and kissed my forehead like he did every morning. "Morning, babe," he murmured. "Morning," I said, forcing my voice to sound normal. "Sleep okay?" "Like the dead." "You?" "Same." He got up, showered, got dressed in one of his expensive suits, came downstairs where I was making coffee, kissed the top of my head, grabbed his briefcase. "I've got meetings all day. Probably won't be home until late. Don't wait up for dinner." "Okay," I said. "Love you." "Love you too." He walked out the door, got in his car, drove away, and I stood at the kitchen window watching him leave, knowing this was possibly the last normal morning we'd ever have. Because from this moment forward, everything was about to change. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. I had to look Brandon in the face every single day and act like nothing was wrong. I had to let him kiss me, touch me, lie to me, all while knowing the truth. It was torture. Every moment felt like I was being ripped apart from the inside. But I held it together because Simone and I had a plan. We became partners in this nightmare. Every time Brandon traveled to Los Angeles, Simone documented his time there. Photos of him with her and Olivia, receipts from restaurants and stores, video of him playing with their daughter, calling her daddy's little girl. And every time he came home to Phoenix, I did the same thing. I took photos of us together, saved receipts from his credit card statements that came to our house, documented the nights he came home late, the mornings he left early, every text message he sent saying he loved me. We also started digging into the finances. Simone had access to credit card statements for cards she didn't even know existed. I had access to bank account information from our joint account. Between us, we pieced together a financial trail that showed exactly where Brandon's money was going and where it wasn't going. What we found made both of us sick. Brandon had been draining his business accounts to fund his double life. He'd maxed out credit cards, taken out personal loans. The cash flow problem he'd told me about wasn't because clients weren't paying. It was because he was spending money faster than he could make it. He was living beyond his means. Times two, trying to maintain 2 households, 2 lives, and the whole house of cards was starting to collapse. We also discovered something else. Brandon's business trips weren't always to see either of us. There were charges at hotels in Seattle, San Francisco, Denver, cities neither of us lived in. When Simone called those hotels and asked if they had a guest named Brandon Torres on specific dates, they confirmed he'd stayed there. But he wasn't traveling for business. He was traveling alone. Or maybe not alone. Maybe there were other women we didn't know about yet. 3 weeks after that 3 a.m. phone call, Simone and I decided it was time. We had enough evidence, we had each other's backs, and we were ready to watch Brandon's world burn. We planned it carefully. Simone would fly to Phoenix with baby Olivia. She'd arrive on a Saturday afternoon when she knew Brandon would be at our house. She'd show up at our door with their daughter and ring the doorbell, and I would be the one to answer it. That Saturday, I woke up with my heart pounding. This was it. The day everything came crashing down. Brandon was home, surprisingly domestic, making pancakes in the kitchen. He was in a good mood, humming to himself, telling me about his plans to finally take me on that trip to Napa we'd been talking about. All lies, all manipulation, acting like the devoted husband while his other wife flew across the desert with his daughter to expose him. At 2:30 that afternoon, the doorbell rang. Brandon was in his home office on a call. I walked to the front door and opened it, and there stood Simone Torres. I'd seen her face dozens of times on video calls over the past few weeks, but seeing her in person was surreal. She was beautiful, tall, dark hair, exhausted eyes that probably mirrored my own. And in her arms, wrapped in a pink blanket, was Olivia. Hi, Maya, Simone said quietly. Hi, Simone. Come in. She stepped inside, and I closed the door behind her. We stood in the entryway of my house, our house, the house Brandon and I had bought together, and looked at each other. Two women who should have been enemies, two women who'd been betrayed by the same man, two women who were about to deliver justice together. Is he here? Simone asked. In his office, on a call. Perfect. We walked through the house together. Baby Olivia started fussing, and Simone bounced her gently. We reached Brandon's office door. I could hear his voice inside, probably talking to some client, lying about something, spinning some story. I looked at Simone one more time. She nodded. I opened the door without knocking. Brandon was sitting at his desk, phone pressed to his ear. He looked up when we walked in, and I watched his face go through the most remarkable transformation. Shock, horror, panic, complete and total terror. The color drained from his skin. The phone slipped from his hand. I'll call you back, he said into the phone. But I don't think he ended the call properly. He just stared at us, at me and Simone, standing side by side with his daughter between us. Hey, honey, I said, keeping my voice calm. We have visitors. Simone stepped forward. Hi, Brandon. Surprise. Brandon stood up so fast his chair rolled backward and hit the wall. Simone, what are you doing here? I told you I was in Phoenix for work this week. You can't just... Can't just what? Simone interrupted. Can't just show up at my husband's house. Isn't this your house, Brandon? He looked between us, trying to figure out how to spin this, how to explain this away. Simone, this is... Maya, I can explain... Explain what? I said. Explain how you've been married to both of us at the same time. Explain how you have a 9-month-old daughter I knew nothing about. Explain how you've been lying to both of us for years. Brandon's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. He looked like a fish gasping for air. If you're watching this and your blood is boiling like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. Simone walked over and placed a folder on Brandon's desk. That's every piece of evidence Maya and I have collected over the past 3 weeks. Photos, financial records, credit card statements, hotel receipts, text messages, emails, everything that proves you've been living a double life. I placed another folder next to hers, and that's copies of our marriage certificate, our mortgage documents, and statements from my bank showing that I've been paying all our household expenses for the past year while you told me you were having cash flow problems, while you were really buying Simone a new car. Brandon picked up the folders with shaking hands and opened them. His face went from white to gray as he flipped through the pages. All the evidence of his lies compiled in neat, organized, undeniable proof. How did you? He started. How did we find out? Simone said. You mean how did we discover you've been playing both of us for fools? I called your phone at 3 a.m. because our daughter had a fever and Maya answered. That's how. Brandon looked at me. You answered my phone? You were asleep, I said coldly. Your daughter needed you, your other daughter. The one I didn't know existed until your other wife called looking for you. Maya, please, Brandon said, moving toward me. Let me explain. This isn't what you think. I held up my hand to stop him. Don't! Don't you dare come near me! Don't you dare try to spin another lie! We know everything, Brandon. Everything. Simone said, We know about the apartment in West Hollywood that you've been paying rent on for 3 years. We know about the car you bought me with money you should have been contributing to your household in Phoenix. We know about the hotels in Seattle and Denver and San Francisco. We know about the credit cards you've maxed out and the loans you've taken out to fund your double life. We know everything. Brandon collapsed back into his chair. He put his head in his hands. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. But I felt nothing. No sympathy, no pity, just cold satisfaction. I never meant to hurt either of you, he said. You have to believe me. I love you both. You don't love us, I said. You love the lives you built. You love the control you had. You love the power of knowing you were getting away with it. But you don't love us. If you loved us, you never would have done this. Simone adjusted Olivia in her arms. The baby was staring at Brandon with wide eyes, probably wondering why her daddy looked so scared. You told me Maya was your ex-wife. You told me you were divorced. You looked me in the eye and lied. I was going to tell you, Brandon said desperately. I was going to ask Maya for a divorce. I swear I was. I just didn't know how. The timing was never right. The timing was never right. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. We've been married for 5 years, Brandon. When exactly was the right time to tell me you had another wife and child? He tried a different tack. Maya, think about what you're throwing away. Think about our life together, our house, our marriage. We can fix this. We can work through this. Work through this? I felt my rage boiling over. You have a daughter with another woman. You've been lying to me every single day for years. You've stolen money from our accounts to fund your other life. What exactly is there to work through? Brandon turned to Simone. And you, think about Olivia. She needs her father. Are you really going to take her father away from her? Simone's voice was ice. You took yourself away from her when you decided to live. A lie. You did this, Brandon. All of this is on you. Don't you dare try to use our daughter to manipulate me. Brandon tried to stand, tried to approach us again, but we both stepped back. Two women, united, refusing to let him close enough to touch us or sweet-talk us or manipulate us back into his web of lies. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I've already contacted a divorce attorney. Simone has contacted one too. We're both filing, and before you try to claim you don't have money for 2 divorces, know that we've already reported your expense account fraud to the IRS and to your clients. You've been billing clients for fake expenses, Brandon. That's not just immoral, it's illegal. The look of sheer panic on his face was almost satisfying enough to make up for the years of pain. Almost. Simone said, I've also contacted a family law attorney about custody. You'll be lucky if you get supervised visitation with Olivia. I'm not letting my daughter be raised by a liar who doesn't know how to tell the truth. You can't keep my daughter from me, Brandon said, standing up again. I have rights. You have no rights, Simone shot back. You forfeited those when you decided to build a second life while you had a baby at home, when you missed bedtimes and doctor's appointments and first words because you were playing house in Phoenix. You chose this, Brandon, I added. And you can forget about the house. I've already talked to my attorney. Since I've been paying the mortgage for the past year, and since you committed fraud to fund your double life, I'm getting the house and the divorce. You'll be lucky if you walk away with your car. Brandon's face crumpled. He actually started crying, real tears streaming down his face. Please, both of you. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But I can fix this. Just give me a chance. We gave you chances, I said. Every time we didn't question your late nights. Every time we believed your excuses. Every time we chose trust over suspicion. Those were your chances. You had thousands of them, and you squandered every single one. Simone walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Brandon? Your mother knows. I called her yesterday and told her everything. She's devastated that her son is a fraud. She said to tell you she's ashamed of you, and she doesn't want to hear from you until you get your life together and apologize to both of us. Brandon's eyes widened. You called my mother? Of course I called your mother, Simone said. She came to our wedding. She's met Olivia. She played along with your lies, and she needs to face the consequences of that too. She's agreed to testify in court, if needed, about how you introduced me as your wife while you were still married to Maya. We walked out of that office together, leaving Brandon sitting at his desk with all the evidence of his lies spread out before him. We walked through the house and out the front door. On my front porch, Simone and I stood facing each other for a moment. Thank you, she said, for not hating me, for working with me instead of against me. Thank you, I said, for calling that night, for being brave enough to tell the truth even when it hurt. She shifted Olivia to her other hip. What are you going to do now? Probably get drunk, I said honestly. And then tomorrow I'm going to start rebuilding my life. What about you? Same, minus the drinking since I'm still breastfeeding, but definitely rebuilding. We exchanged one more look, 2 survivors of the same hurricane, and then Simone got in her rental car and drove away. I stood on my porch watching her leave, and then I turned back to look at my house. Our house. The house that was supposed to be the foundation of my happy marriage. Now it just felt like a crime scene. I went back inside. Brandon was still in his office. I could hear him on the phone, probably calling his attorney, probably trying to figure out how to minimize the damage. Too late. The damage was done. The truth was out, and there was no coming back from this. The next few months were brutal. The divorce proceedings were ugly. Brandon tried everything, denying the bigamy, claiming Simone and I were conspiring against him, arguing that he didn't have the financial resources to support 2 divorce settlements. None of it worked. The evidence was overwhelming. Photos, financial records, witness statements. His own mother testified against him. Simone's divorce went through quickly since their marriage wasn't even legally valid. He'd still been married to me when he married her. She got full custody of Olivia, with Brandon getting supervised visitation every other weekend. He also had to pay substantial child support, which he claimed he couldn't afford. The judge didn't care. My divorce took longer because we had more assets to divide and because Brandon fought me on everything. But in the end, I got the house. I got most of our savings, what was left of them. I got my freedom. Brandon got to move into a studio apartment in a bad part of town and try to rebuild his career from scratch because once word got out about what he'd done, his clients dropped him in droves. Who wants to trust their finances to someone who's been committing fraud? Brandon lost everything: his house, his reputation, his family, his career, his 2 wives, his relationship with his daughter. His mother barely speaks to him. His former colleagues avoid him at industry events. He's become a cautionary tale in Phoenix and Los Angeles business circles. The man who thought he could have it all and ended up with nothing. Simone and I stayed in touch throughout the divorces and beyond. We'd text each other updates, call when we needed to vent, meet for coffee when she visited Phoenix. She became one of my closest friends, which sounds insane, but makes perfect sense when you consider we survived the same trauma together. We understood each other in ways no one else could. About 8 months after that 3 a.m. phone call, I was in a better place. I'd started therapy to work through the betrayal and trust issues. I'd thrown myself into my work at the nonprofit and had gotten promoted to executive director. I'd redone the entire house, erasing any trace of Brandon, making it truly mine. New paint, new furniture, new everything. I'd started going to the gym, not for anyone else, but for myself. I'd reconnected with friends and family I'd been neglecting while I was playing the role of Brandon's devoted wife. The financial recovery took longer. Brandon had drained so much of our money that I had to rebuild my savings from nothing. But I was doing it. I was making it work. And I was doing it without him, which felt like its own kind of victory. Simone was thriving too. She'd gotten a new job in marketing that paid better than her previous position. She'd moved into a bigger apartment in Santa Monica, closer to her family. She'd started dating someone new, a single dad who shared custody of his son and who understood the complexities of co-parenting. She was happy. Actually happy. Not the fake happiness she'd had with Brandon, but real, grounded, honest happiness. 1 year after the 3 a.m. phone call that changed everything, Simone flew to Phoenix with Olivia to celebrate. We went out to dinner at this gorgeous restaurant in Old Town Scottsdale. We ordered wine, expensive wine because we deserved it. We toasted to survival, to friendship, to the truth that had set us both free. "I can't believe it's been a year," Simone said, bouncing Olivia on her lap. The baby was bigger now, walking and babbling, completely unaware of the role she'd played in exposing her father's lies. "Best worst year of my life," I said. "Same," Simone laughed. "Worst because of the betrayal and the divorce and all of it. Best because I found out the truth and got free and met you." We clinked glasses. 2 women who'd been betrayed by the same man, who'd chosen to work together instead of tear each other apart, who'd become friends in the wreckage of our ruined marriages. As we sat there, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it. "Maya, this is Brandon. I know I'm not supposed to contact you, but I needed to tell you I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know I hurt you in ways I can never make right, but I am truly, deeply sorry. You deserved better than what I gave you. I hope someday you can forgive me. I hope someday you can understand that I did love you. I just didn't love you enough to be honest. That was my failure, not yours. I hope you're happy. I hope you found someone who treats you the way you deserve." I showed the text to Simone. She read it and rolled her eyes. Is he seriously trying to get closure now? Apparently. I looked at the text again. There was a time when words like this would have meant something to me. When hearing Brandon say he loved me, that he was sorry, would have made me cry or doubt myself or wonder if I'd been too harsh. But that time was over. I didn't care about his apology. I didn't care about his regrets. I didn't care about Brandon Torres at all. I blocked the number and deleted the text. Done. Good, Simone said. He doesn't get to make us feel bad for exposing the truth. He did this, all of it, and he deserves every consequence he got. We finished our dinner, paid our bill with our own money that we'd earned with our own work, and walked out into the warm Phoenix night. The city lights sparkled around us. The desert air was clear and perfect, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Completely, totally free. That 3 a.m. phone call had destroyed my marriage. It had shattered my trust. It had revealed that the man I loved didn't exist. He was just a character Brandon played to keep me under control. But that phone call had also saved me. It had freed me from a life built on lies. It had given me the truth, and the truth had given me my life back. Now, 2 years after that phone call, I'm in an even better place. I'm dating someone new, a teacher named David who I met through friends. He's kind, honest, straightforward. What you see is what you get. No secret phones, no late nights that don't add up, no vague explanations. Just a good man who wants to build an honest relationship with me. We're taking it slow because I need to take it slow, and he understands that. He respects that. My career is better than ever. The nonprofit I run has doubled in size. We're making real change in our community, helping kids get access to education and resources they wouldn't have otherwise. My work fulfills me in ways that being Brandon's wife never did. The house is completely mine now. Every room reflects my taste, my style, my life. There's not a single trace of Brandon left. It's like he was never here, which is exactly how I want it. Simone just got engaged to Tom, the single dad she's been dating. She called me crying happy tears to tell me the news. I'm flying to Los Angeles next month for an engagement party. Our friendship has evolved beyond trauma bonding into genuine affection and trust. She's someone I consider family now. And Brandon? Last I heard, he's still living in that studio apartment, still working a job that pays a fraction of what he used to make, still paying child support and alimony that keeps him broke, still trying to rebuild a reputation that's permanently damaged. His mother has a relationship with him again, but it's strained. He gets to see Olivia every other weekend, supervised visits where he has to prove he's stable and trustworthy. His entire life imploded because he thought he could lie forever, because he thought we were too trusting, too naive, too in love to ever question him. He was wrong. That 3 a.m. phone call was Simone's panic over her sick daughter reaching out for help. But what it really was the universe making sure the truth came out, making sure 2 women trapped in lies got free, making sure Brandon Torres faced consequences for his actions. People sometimes ask me if I regret the time I spent with Brandon. If I wish I'd figured it out sooner. Honestly, I don't know. Yes, I wasted years with a liar. Yes, I was hurt in ways that took a long time to heal. But those years also taught me things. They taught me to trust my instincts. They taught me what I won't tolerate. They taught me that I'm stronger than I ever knew. And they brought me Simone's friendship, which has been one of the best things in my life. So no, I don't regret it. I survived it. And survival is its own kind of victory. If you're watching this and you're in a relationship that doesn't feel right, if something in your gut is telling you something's wrong, listen to it. Don't explain it away. Don't convince yourself you're being paranoid. Trust yourself. Your instincts are trying to protect you. And if you've been betrayed, if someone you loved destroyed your trust, know that you can come back from it. It won't happen overnight. It will hurt like hell. But you can rebuild. You can heal. You can find happiness again. Not despite the betrayal, but beyond it. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story. This is Maya Torres, and this was my story of how a 3 a.m. phone call destroyed my marriage and saved my life. The truth always comes out, always. Sometimes it comes out at 3 in the morning when a desperate mother calls looking for her husband. Sometimes it comes out when 2 betrayed women choose to work together instead of against each other. Sometimes it comes out when a man's lies become too complicated to maintain and the whole house of cards collapses. But it always comes out. And when it does, you have a choice. You can fall apart, or you can fight back. You can let it destroy you, or you can let it free you. Simone and I chose to fight. We chose to demand the truth. We chose to take back our power, and we won. Brandon Torres thought he could have 2 wives, 2 lives, 2 separate realities forever. He thought we'd never find out. He thought he was smarter than us. He was wrong. So remember, if someone loves you, they'll show you. They won't hide you. They won't lie about you. They won't create secret lives that don't include you. Real love is honest. Real love is transparent. Real love doesn't require you to ignore your instincts or explain away red flags or make excuses for behavior that doesn't make sense. I thought I had real love with Brandon. Turns out I had an elaborate performance designed to keep me controlled and unaware. But now I know the difference. Now I know what real love looks like, and I'll never settle for anything less again. Neither should you. This is Maya Torres, signing off. Stay strong, trust yourself, and never ever answer your partner's phone at 3 in the morning unless you're prepared for your entire life to change. Because sometimes it does. 5 years have passed since that 3 a.m. phone call changed everything. 5 years since I discovered my husband was living a double life. 5 years since Simone and I joined forces to take down the man who'd betrayed us both. And now, sitting in the house that used to be ours but is now completely mine, I can finally say without hesitation that I'm grateful it all happened. I know that sounds crazy. Who's grateful for betrayal? Who's grateful for discovering their marriage was a lie? But hear me out. Last week, I married David, the teacher I mentioned, the good, honest, straightforward man who showed me what real love actually looks like. We had a small ceremony in Sedona with about 40 people, my family, his family, our closest friends. Simone flew in from Los Angeles with Tom and Olivia and their new baby boy. She was my matron of honor. The woman who used to be my husband's other wife stood beside me while I married someone new. And it felt exactly right. During my vows, I promised David honesty, transparency, and partnership. And when I said those words, I meant them with every fiber of my being because I know what happens when those things are missing. I know what a marriage looks like when it's built on lies, and I will never, ever allow that into my life again. David promised me the same things, and then he added something that made me cry. He said, I promise to be worthy of the trust you're giving me. I know that trust isn't easy for you. I know it costs you something to believe in someone again. I promise I will never take that for granted. I will earn your trust every single day for the rest of our lives. The man understands me, really understands me, not the surface version of me that Brandon saw and manipulated, but the real me, the woman who's been broken and put herself back together, the woman who knows her worth now because she's had to fight to reclaim it. David loves that woman, not some fantasy version he's created in his head, but the actual, complicated, scarred, strong woman standing in front of him. That's what real love looks like. I know because I've seen the counterfeit version. At the reception, Simone and I stood together at the bar, watching David dance with his son from his first marriage. She clinked her champagne glass against mine and said, Look at us! Who would have thought we'd both end up here? Happy? I said. Actually happy? Disgustingly happy, she laughed. With good men who only have one life each. What a concept. We watched the dance floor for a moment. Olivia was out there with my niece, both of them spinning around to the music. Olivia is 5 years old now, a bright, beautiful little girl who barely remembers the chaos of her parents' divorce. She knows her daddy made some bad choices. She knows. Her mommy and I are friends because we helped each other during a hard time. But she doesn't carry the weight of Brandon's lies. Simone made sure of that. Have you heard from him lately? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Simone shook her head. Not in about 6 months. He sends cards for Olivia's birthday and Christmas, but that's it. Tom is more of a father to her than Brandon ever was or ever will be. Tom had officially adopted Olivia last year. Brandon didn't fight it. I think by that point he understood he'd lost the right to play father to a daughter he'd barely been present for. Tom stepped into that role naturally, loving Olivia like she was his own from the first day he met her. That little girl is so lucky. She lost a biological father who was a fraud, but she gained a real father who shows up for every dance recital, every parent-teacher conference, every bedtime story. What about you? Simone asked. Has he tried to contact you? No, not since that text 2 years ago that I blocked. I took a sip of champagne. I think he finally got the message that we're done. There's no closure, no reconciliation, no forgiveness coming, we're just done. Good, Simone said firmly. He doesn't deserve access to either of us, not even for closure or apologies or whatever healing he thinks he needs. He destroyed that privilege when he lied to us for years. I nodded. We'd had this conversation many times over the past 5 years. In the beginning, we both struggled with residual guilt. Society tells us we're supposed to forgive, to give people second chances, to be understanding about mistakes. But what Brandon did wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated, deliberate pattern of deception that lasted years. He made thousands of choices to lie to us, to manipulate us, to steal our time and money and trust. That's not a mistake. That's a character flaw so deep it can't be fixed with an apology. We stopped feeling guilty about refusing to forgive him. Some things are unforgivable, and we made peace with that. Later that night, after the reception ended and everyone went home, David and I sat on the back patio of our house, not the house I'd shared with Brandon. We'd sold that a year ago. This was a new house that David and I bought together, a fresh start with no ghosts, no memories of betrayal, just us building something new. Happy? David asked, pulling me close. Incredibly, I said. You? Best day of my life. He kissed the top of my head. Thank you for letting me love you. Thank you for taking a chance on marriage again, even after what you went through. I looked up at him. Thank you for being patient with me, for understanding why I needed to take things slow. for never making me feel crazy for needing proof that you're telling me the truth. In the early days of our relationship, I'd been a nightmare to date. I'd check David's phone constantly. I'd question where he was going and who he was with. I'd have panic attacks if he was even 15 minutes late coming home. I'd convince myself that every man was capable of the kind of deception Brandon had pulled off, that I could never trust anyone again. But David never got angry, never accused me of being paranoid or controlling. He just quietly, consistently proved that he was exactly who he said he was. He gave me his phone password without me asking. He introduced me to everyone in his life, his friends, his family, his ex-wife who he co-parented with, his colleagues, everyone. He was an open book because he had nothing to hide. Eventually, I stopped needing to check. Eventually, I started to trust. Not because I was naive again, but because David earned it. Every single day, he earned it. "I'd do it all again," David said. "Every reassurance, every proof, every patient conversation about why you're scared. You're worth it, Maya. You've always been worth it." And that's when I realized something profound. Brandon had made me feel like I wasn't enough, like I needed to be more understanding, more flexible, more accommodating, like the problems in our marriage were somehow my fault for not being whatever he needed me to be. But the truth was, I was always enough. Brandon was the one who wasn't enough. He wasn't man enough to be honest. He wasn't strong enough to choose one life and commit to it. He wasn't brave enough to face the consequences of his choices until they were forced on him. I was always enough. I just needed to find someone who deserved what I had to offer. The next morning, David and I woke up in our new house as husband and wife. We made breakfast together, read the newspaper, talked about our plans for the honeymoon we were taking next month. It was beautifully, wonderfully mundane. No drama, no lies, no secrets. Just two people who'd found each other and chosen to build an honest life together. My phone rang around noon. It was Simone calling from the airport before her flight back to Los Angeles. "I forgot to tell you something yesterday," she said. "I ran into Brandon's mother at the grocery store last month." I felt a small twist in my stomach. I hadn't thought about Brandon's mother in years, the woman who'd known about his double life and said nothing, who'd attended his wedding to Simone while he was still married to me, who'd played along with his lies until we exposed him. "What did she say?" I asked. "She apologized. Again. She looked awful, Maya, like she's aged 10 years. She said Brandon is still struggling. He's working as an accountant at some small firm, living alone, no relationship. She said he talks about us sometimes, about how he threw away two good women for reasons he still doesn't fully understand." I waited to feel something. Sympathy, maybe, or vindication, or satisfaction. But I felt nothing. Brandon's struggles weren't my problem anymore. His regrets weren't my burden to carry. He was just someone I used to know. Someone who'd hurt me badly. Someone who was no longer relevant to my life in any way. "Good for him for getting help, I guess," I said neutrally. "But I don't need to know about it. His mother should understand that by now." "I told her the same thing," Simone said. "I told her we've moved on. We have new lives, new families, new futures. Brandon isn't part of any of that, and we need her to respect that boundary." Did she understand? I think so. She cried a little. Said she understood why we can't forgive what he did. Said she's proud of how we both landed on our feet. Simone paused. She asked if she could send a wedding gift. I told her no. I hoped that was okay. "More than okay," I said. "We don't need anything from that family. We don't need their gifts or their apologies or their updates on Brandon's life. We need them to leave us alone." "Agreed?" I could hear Simone's relief through the phone. "Okay, they're boarding. I love you, Maya. Congratulations again on the wedding. You and David are going to be so happy together." "I love you too. Hug Olivia for me." After we hung up, I sat with David on the couch and told him about the call. He listened without interrupting, then said, "Do you want to talk about it? About Brandon or any of that?" "No," I said, and I meant it. That chapter is closed. I'm not interested in reopening it, not even for curiosity or closure or to hear about how sorry he is. I'm done with all of that. David nodded. "Then we're done with it. We won't talk about him again unless you bring it up." And we didn't. Because the truth is, Brandon Torres doesn't deserve any more of my time or energy or emotional bandwidth. He took enough from me. Years of my life, money I'd worked hard for, trust I'd given freely. He doesn't get another second of my attention. Instead, I'm focused on the life I'm building now. The real life. The honest life. The life where I'm married to a man who keeps his promises, who only has one phone and one wife and one set of vows. The life where I run a nonprofit that's making real change in the community. The life where I have genuine friendships and a sister bond with a woman who should have been my enemy, but became my ally instead. The life where I know my worth and refuse to settle for anything less than what I deserve. Sometimes people ask me how I trust again after what Brandon did, how I let myself fall in love with David when I'd been so thoroughly betrayed by the last man I loved. The answer is complicated, but also simple. I trust David because he's earned it through consistent, honest action over years. Not because I've gone back to being naive, not because I've forgotten what betrayal feels like, but because David has proven, day after day after day, that he's not Brandon. He's transparent about his life. He introduces me to everyone. He answers questions without getting defensive. He shows up when he says he will. He doesn't have secret bank accounts or password-protected phones or mysterious late nights that don't add up. His life is an open book because he has nothing to hide. But more importantly, I trust myself now. I trust my instincts. I trust that if something feels wrong, I'll pay attention to that feeling instead of explaining it away. I trust that I'm strong enough to walk away if I ever need to. I trust that I'll never again make myself small or accommodating or understanding to the point where I'm ignoring obvious red flags. Brandon taught me what I don't want. David is showing me what I do want. And the contrast is so stark, so clear, that I know I'll never confuse the two again. This is my happy ending. Not because I got revenge on Brandon, though I did. Not because he lost everything, though he did. But because I found myself again. The strong, capable, worthy woman who'd been buried under years of gaslighting and manipulation. I found her, dusted her off, and became her again. And now I'm married to a good man who loves that woman. I have a career that fulfills me. I have friendships that sustain me. I have a life that's entirely my own, built on truth and honesty and real love. Brandon tried to destroy me. He tried to break me down, make me doubt myself, take everything I had. But I survived. Simone and I both survived. We didn't just survive, we rebuilt. We created better lives than the ones we had when we were married to him. We found real love, real partnership, real happiness. That 3 a.m. phone call 5 years ago was the worst moment of my life and the best thing that ever happened to me. It exposed the truth. It freed me from a life built on lies. It gave me the chance to start over and do it right this time. So no, I don't forgive Brandon Torres. I don't wish him well. I don't hope he finds happiness or peace or whatever redemption he's looking for. I simply don't think about him at all anymore. He's irrelevant, a footnote in my story, a chapter that's closed and filed away. My story now is about David, about the nonprofit I'm growing, about the home we're making together, about the future we're building with honesty and trust and real, genuine love. This is my final word on Brandon Torres and the life I had with him. I'm grateful it ended. I'm grateful the truth came out. I'm grateful I found Simone. I'm grateful I found myself. And I'm grateful I found David. The rest is just noise. And I don't listen to noise anymore. I only listen to truth. This is Maya Torres. 5 years later, finally, completely, perfectly free. And I'm never looking back. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story.